Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Celtics Talk Radio live post-game video chat with Igor and Danny. Tonight it's Thursday, 10th May, around 7:15 p.m. Eastern. We are celebrating the big win in the game number 5 of the second round playoffs 2018, in which the Celtics defeated the Sixers 114-112, and in which they finished off the Sixers and winning the whole series 4-1. Despite every single game they were underdogs according to NBA experts, so-called experts, and the bookmakers, because in the games 1 and 2, the Sixers were 5 points favorites, and also in the game 3, the Sixers were 7 points favorites. In the game number 4, 9 points favorites, and last night they were 1 point favorites. If I'm correct, the projected score according to Vegas should be 102 Sixers, the Celtics 101, and the Sixers proved that everybody was underrating the Celtics proved that everybody was underrating the Celtics without the reason, and some of the experts admitted that they were wrong. Some of the experts just don't believe, just said that the Celtics win by accident. Some of the Sixers fans are using officiating as excuse, just like Embiid, but whatever. I will say this: Boston 114, Philadelphia 112. The Celtics improved to 7-0 at home, which is significant looking into the Eastern Conference Finals, because we have the home court advantage in the Eastern Conference Finals against Cleveland Cavaliers. So everything is going our way in the playoffs, because we have the home court advantage in the playoffs because Toronto was eliminated from Cavaliers, the fake number 1 seed, Eastern Conference Toronto. Danny and I and the rest of Celtics Talk Radio crew were saying the whole year that Toronto is not legit number 1 place, and it is proven into the playoffs. Everything we said, basically. Danny, we made prognosis that Boston will win in 7. We were one of the rares. Boston won in 5. So I want to say that Boston even played better than I expected, and congratulations to every Celtics fans, coaches, players, and management and owners. So Embiid scored 27 points, 12 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 blocks. Šarić, monster performance, second best player practically in the series, 27 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists. Ben Simmons, 18 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists. But despite all of that, he was not good on the court. He was the biggest Sixers problem in the series. Jason Tatum, 25 points, 8 of 15 field goal, 9 of 17 free throws. Jaylen Brown, 24 points, 10 of 13 field goal, 4 rebounds. Al Horford, 15 points, 8 rebounds, and 5 steals. The Celtics won 4-1. They will face Cavaliers into the Eastern Conference Finals. The Eastern Conference Finals starting this Sunday, 13th May in Boston, 3:30 p.m. Eastern at ABC. Then Tuesday, 8:30 in Boston, ESPN Game 2. Prior to the game number 2, the NBA Draft Lottery. We will have coverage at our page, Vivid Green Celtics Fans Forum. The Celtics have 2.9% chance to land 2 or 3 pick. So if that pick doesn't convey, the pick goes to Philadelphia 76ers, and the Celtics will have the Kings pick 2019. And the Celtics should have I think, 28 pick at the draft of the first round. The game number 3 is Saturday 19th. It will be like three days pause between games 2 and 3, which is unusual. So the game number 3, Saturday 19th May in Cleveland, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Then the game number 4 in Cleveland, Monday 21st, ESPN, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. All games are 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Only game number 1 is at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. Game number 5 will be in Boston, if needed, 23rd May, Wednesday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, ESPN. Game number 6 in Cleveland, 25th May, Friday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. And game number 7 is in Boston, if needed, 27th May, Sunday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern at ESPN. The Celtics advanced to the Eastern Conference Finals, defeating the Sixers 114-112, setting up their record straight to the second time in a row to be Eastern Conference finalists. The Celtics defeated Sixers 4-0 in one incredible 5-game series. The Celtics made brilliant planning against Embiid and Simmons, and Boston improved 7-2 in 9 games against Philadelphia in 2017-2018 season. The Celtics are 3-1 in regular season, and the Celtics are 4-1 in the postseason. So everybody that is saying that the Sixers are better than the Celtics with 7-2 score, I'm just going to say you are one idiot. Trailing 109-105, the Celtics closed the final 1 minute and 27 seconds in the regulations with a 9-3 run. The Celtics are advancing to the Eastern Conference Finals in 2 consecutive seasons for the first time since doing that 5 straight times between 1984, 1988 in the Big Three era with Larry Bird, Chief Parrish, and Kevin McHale and the others. The Celtics got back to the Eastern Conference Finals without Hayward, Kyrie Irving, and Tice. We all know that. Also, the Celtics lost Olynyk, Jerebko, Isaiah Thomas, Bradley, Crowder, Green. So they have gone to the Eastern Conference Finals with 4 players remaining from the last season. Those players are Al Horford, Terry Rozier, Al Horford, Terry Rozier, and Marcus Smart. Actually, that is 3 players, I think, Danny, from and Jaylen Brown. That is 4, right? So 4 players: Al Horford, Terry Rozier, Jaylen Brown, and Marcus Smart. Those are the only 4 players that played in the last year's Eastern Conference Finals. We lost from Cleveland 4-1. In the game in Cleveland, Marcus Smart went off with 27, 28 points, 7 of 10, 7 of 11 shooting threes. Couple of more information before giving word to Daniel. Important informations. Daniel Lynch on 98.5 Sports Hub. There is no chance Gordon Hayward will return to face Cleveland, but we knew it. Also, Danny Ainge on 98.5 the Sports Hub, Shane Larkin strained shoulder. We will just take week by week. I don't think, I don't know when he will be back. We are not sure. We are hoping the later part of this series there is a chance, but we cannot count on it. That is huge blow. Though in this series against Cavaliers, we would not need that much Shane Larkin. We would need the stronger perimeter guys, and the centers. Jason Tatum over last 7 games, the Celtics rookie averaged 22.9 points per game, 49.5 field goal percent, and 84% free throws. 22.9 points, 3.7 rebounds, and 3.4 assists. As you know, he's reached 20 plus points in each games. In 7 consecutive games, he's 20 plus points. And I can say also that he's the only Celtics player that have 20 plus points in the 7 consecutive playoff games since 2004-05 playoffs, where Paul Pierce had that achievement. Also, if you look at most consecutive 20 points games by rookies in the postseason, the record holder is Lou Alcindor. He had 10 games with 20 plus points, 90-70. Here, Jason Tatum with 7, Donovan Mitchell with 7, and David Robinson with 6. So if Jason has 4 more 20 plus games, he will be record holder, which is incredible, Daniel, right? And about the draft lottery begins before the game 2, if I'm correct, 7:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. So the both Celtics and the Sixers will watch what will happen to the Lakers pick. We have 2.9% to landing the 2 and second or third pick. If the pick is between number 2 and 5, it will be the Celtics pick. If it landed between 5 and 10, it will be Philadelphia spot. If the pick ends second or third, the Celtics will get it. It is top 1 protected. If it's number 1, the Lakers will got it. And the pick will go to 76ers either if it's 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th. If the pick doesn't come with this year, the Celtics will got the first rounder from the either Philadelphia 76ers or Sacramento Kings, whichever pick is higher. Unless the higher pick is number 1 pick, then it's lesser pick, and based on how good Philly was this year, you can pretty much say it will be the Kings pick next year that we hope for. And last information in my intro, that we will probably have 27 pick the next year. Daniel, what can you say about the game? And I want you, game 5, I want you to comment with this. The Philadelphia 76ers guys are actually complaining about the officials because the NBA's latest last 2 minutes report saying, among the other things, that Joel Embiid was fouled by Aaron Baines on his last shoot attempt, and Marcus Smart traveled on his last steal, and also says Saric and Smart exchanged uncalled fouls in the post on the Saric's late turnover. We can conclude, only thing that I can conclude is that officiating throughout the whole series was terribly, terribly bad. Because the last night, not only those mistakes at the end of the game, I could not tell Daniel what is the foul, what is not foul. They totally, especially Zach Zarba, lost the criteria of the fouls. And they were whistling some tic-tac fouls on the other end. They were allowing the wrestling in the paint. Don't get me wrong. I want to watch the playoff basketball and the strong basketball without tic-tac fouls. But you must have criteria from both sides and during the 48 minutes. If you allow the stronger games and stronger contact and allow it until the end, and not to change the criteria in the second half, because that is not good. Your comments?
Well, I think it's an absolute joke for anybody in the Philadelphia squad to be complaining about the officiating in this series, or Philadelphia fans, or the Philadelphia coaching staff, or Philadelphia ownership. Remember, yesterday was Game 5 in Boston, and when you look at the information with the stats overall for this game, the Celtics ended up taking 41 free throws in this game. Philadelphia ended up taking 31. So there was only a 10 free throw gap in this game between the two teams, which, again, you're in Boston, you got to expect that the home team is going to get more free throws and more calls, because that's just the way the way the NBA is. But the biggest free throw gap in the entire series in any one single game still went to the 76ers in Game 1 here in Boston, which was them having that 35-19 free throw edge that went in their favor. So you had a big game, pretty much had a game where pretty much the officiating gave you a major free throw edge, and your guys blew it in that game, allowing us to blow them out by 16, despite the fact that they had 16 more free throws. Maybe if they had shot better in this series at the free throw line, you wouldn't have gone home so early. Then you got the situation with what we saw in games 3 and 4. Games in both game 3 and 4 down in Philly, both times we saw the officials completely target the players who Philadelphia was having trouble defending, namely Jason Tatum, who, in my opinion, was the best player in this series. You can make an argument maybe that, the big plays overall down the stretch when we needed the most, because, of course, every game, other than the Game 1 win for us and the Game 4 win for Philadelphia, every other game, was right down to the very end with, it being a last-second type shot, something like that, somebody making a last-second mistake, a turnover that sealed the deal. And in those games where it was right down to the last few seconds, it was Al Horford who made the game-winning plays. But the overall best player in this series, who brought it from the beginning to the end, was Jason Tatum. And we saw in games 3 and 4 the officiating crew completely target Jason Tatum both games after he got off to a hot start, making it where Tatum was pretty much in a position where he had to sit midway through the second quarters, making it where he wouldn't be able to play the rest of the half in Game 3. He did come back closer to the end of the second quarter in Game 4, because the Celtics were trying to keep things close in hopes that they could somehow make a comeback in the third quarter. You had overall in those two games where ultimately in Game 4 you had Aaron Baines, Jason Tatum, Marcus Smart, and Jaylen Brown, who were all 3 fouls or more, while only Embiid and Bellinelli were 3 fouls or more for the Philadelphia side. And you and me mentioned it in one of the video chats or on the radio show, if I'm correct, that with that game, Marcus Smart and Embiid were the only 2 to foul out. But in Embiid's situation, the fouling out in that case was absolutely legit because of the type of fouls he was committing. Game 4, it was the same thing. You ended up seeing Jason Tatum, Marcus Smart, Aaron Baines, and this time I believe it was Marcus Morris that was targeted with the foul situation going directly at them, instead of it being, Jaylen Brown who was targeted. Last night, we see Igor towards the end of the game that Al Horford, Aaron Baines, and Marcus Morris, the 3 big guys that Brad Stevens is using in the rotation, because we didn't really get to see much of Greg Monroe in this series. Ojale didn't really get much playing time in this series either. So the three guys that are trying to work together to stop arguably one of the best big guys in the game, and Embiid, and somebody who's supposed to be a super, a possible future superstar according to all these, insiders and analysts, and yet all three of those guys, Igor, by the beginning of the fourth quarter, or at least early in the fourth quarter, all of them had 4 or 5 fouls already on their, resume, pretty much making it where they literally had to be super careful defending Embiid because they were all close to fouling out. And so you saw the 76ers targeting our guys, mainly using Embiid, giving the ball to him like crazy so that he could just keep banging into them, hoping that the officials would make the call so that they could foul out Morris, foul out Horford, foul out Baines. So like that, there would be nobody else other than Monroe, who, like I said, hadn't got a chance to play at that point, to actually try and stop him. So there ain't no excuse for the 76ers in this case. You were in a position where you had a chance. You had the lead with about a minute and a half, something like that, left to go, and you blew it once again. You had a wide-open three for Redick that he ended up missing. A three that he can make. He can make a three, Igor, from nearly halfway between the half-court line and the three-point line, but yet the three that was wide open right near the three-point line, he ends up missing. How about all the free throws your guys missed up to that point in the game? There are other things you got to point to if you're a 76ers fan that you can say that's what cost us this game, a 2-point game. You can't be blaming the officiating in a game like this that and your team knew they needed, and some of their guys, your players, simply messed it up. You should have known that the calls were going to go our way, knowing that we were at home, and after knowing that you had 2 games straight where the officiating went in your way because we were in your court, But the fact that the officiating, for the most part, kept it close, and then down the stretch, they opted to make it where they weren't going to call anything. Really, neither team, Igor, got the calls they were supposed to get until Philadelphia started intentionally fouling because of the fact they needed the clock to stop in order for us to shoot the free throws for them to have a chance to try and get more shots to try and tie it. But up to that point, the officials basically, I guess you could say, from like maybe within the last 3 minutes or so, they stopped blowing the whistle and started making it where both teams were going to have to basically fight through whatever took place, and we're going to have to basically nail their shots or live without making it. As simple as that. You had Sarge, who, like you said, he that play with him and Smart that they mentioned in that officials report, Sarge ran right over Marcus Smart, and that was supposed to be an offensive foul. That wasn't called. He lost the ball instead, and Horford ended up stealing it. Stuff like that. That was obvious that those fouls should have been called, and the officials didn't do it. So it went both ways last night. It's really just that the Philadelphia fans, again, can't accept that their guys basically ran into a team that was much more better than the Miami team that they ended up facing in round 1. Again, their heads, like I said about Embiid, the fans' heads all grew so fat, thanks to the media, basically building them up over that big, winning streak. And unfortunately for them now, we popped the heads. Now the heads have gone back to shrinking like regular people, and now they got to live with the fact that now they got to wait all the way to next year to have a chance, and they know their best chance to get by us and to the conference finals was this year. Unless their ownership there does something to get them another big-name player, they ain't going to have a chance to beat us next year once Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward return.
Or the years after. And it is strange to me, and then in this show, we will try to explain in the second hour why it is not true that the Sixers are so much superior in the talent than the Celtics. It is proven opposite. The Celtics won the series, Danny and the Celtics fans, because they are more talented team constructed, despite the narrative that Joel Embiid is the new Wilt Chamberlain, that Ben Simmons is the new LeBron James, then the Sixers is the new dynasty. then I mean, Simmons is the new Dr. J, you know, Julius Irving. I mean, this is just insane. The Celtics process of increments, improvements proved to be better than Philadelphia process of tanking and winning the talent by tanking. I have been saying the last 6 years, Daniel, that by tanking you cannot build the championship team up, and there is no evidence that that constructively team that won the ever championship. Oklahoma was the closest. They were in the finals. I think that Miami Heat run over them 4-0 or 4-1, if I'm correct, with Kevin Durant, Westbrook, and James Harden. So there is no evidence that any team won the title that way. And that's why I'm trusting the Celtics process of increment improvement rather than the Sixers process of rebuilding through draft only and through tanking. Now, the different thing that you mentioned and I wrote after the game, quote, I can see the Sixers be really good for a long time. I can see the Celtics and the Sixers battling for the next 10 years in the playoffs. I can see the Sixers to be top 4 teams in the playoffs, but I can see the Sixers to become the new Toronto Raptors. They will always be eliminated by either Celtics or even Toronto Raptors if they don't blow it up after LeBron James retires. Okay? Unless they got the number 1 player at the team like Kawhi Leonard, LeBron James, or maybe Paul George, who is operated his knee, and we wish him the best. Unless they got one superstar, number 1 player at the team, the Sixers have slim to no chances to winning the title in the next 10 years. This is just my opinion. And if you analyze the roster of the Sixers, Daniel, and again, we will analyze that in the second hour more in details. They are really not deep team. It is amazing to me, and in my opinion, it is thanks to the easier schedule that the Sixers achieved to win 17 in a row towards the end of the year, and I congratulate them about that. But we said that they played against the teams that are sub 50% teams or tanking teams, and they just, used the easier part of the schedule. On the other side, Celtics went without Gordon on 16-0 run, and the Celtics did it with we defeated some legit teams in that run, like Oklahoma, like Houston, like Indiana, I think even Golden State Warriors. Unlike the Sixers, the Celtics proved to be legit. They have very successful record against the Western teams, against the top 2 teams in the NBA. The Golden State Warriors and the Houston that are going to play in the Western Conference Finals, the Celtics are 2-2. So the Celtics are proving that they have the real talent as a team. Our talent, Al Horford, who was, I think, 9th pick, or basically top 10 picks, I'm sure. Then Jason Tatum and Brown, number 3 picks. Smart, number 5 pick. Plus, we have Kyrie, who is former number 1 pick. Plus, Gordon Hayward, that is going to return. The Celtics have really stock filled with talent. Even the role players like Morris, like Baines, like Shane Larkin, like Daniel Tice during the season, the stretches, even Monroe, they all contributed to the 55 wins. and the successful postseason. The team that Danny Ainge built was phenomenal, and we have the best coach in NBA besides Popovich, of course. Kudos to Greg Popovich. And the Sixers are not experienced. They have the Ben Simmons problem. I posted the basketball breakdown video at our page, the Ben Simmons problem. The Sixers have the huge Ben Simmons problem, Danny. Unless he mature more and add some jumper, he will never become the superstar that ESPN projected him to be. Also, Embiid is not mature. He was doing during the series exactly what the Celtics wanted him to do. That is to posting up, to hog the ball. And, I didn't care, and I was not afraid when he scored in a bunches in the second or the third quarter, because Danny, I knew that he would throw the ball, and he will miss in the clutch time and fourth quarter. And he missed in every single game. The Sixers are unexperienced. They will need at least 2 seasons to learn how to win the serious playoff series. And, the Celtics learned like 2 years before they went to the Eastern Conference Finals. And the Sixers will need at least 2 years to learn that. So, in my opinion, we won the series because we have the best coach in the series and probably whole NBA. Number 2, Al Horford was the best player of the series, and maybe Jason Tatum was in the points and statistically wise. But what Al Horford is doing on the court, this is something that you cannot value by statistics. He was the true leader, the true captain, dominated Embiid in every single sense of that word, and he brought us to the Eastern Conference Finals. Another reason the Celtics have talented and deeper team, because look, the Sixers at the bench, who they have? They played Justin Anderson last night for the defensive, shoot. They started TJ McConnell. Those guys are not starting material, Danny. And plus, they relied on the guys that they picked up from the waiver wire, the Ersan Ilyasova and Marco Bellinelli. So that is telling you that they really don't have the deep bench. Fultz didn't play, the so-called superstar. Maybe he will be. I doubt in it. But on the paper, the reason number 3 is because the Celtics are more talented and deeper team. And finally, number 4, the Celtics are more playoff experienced team, and that is why we won the series. Your comments about it?
Well, like you said, stats-wise, Tatum was the best player for this Boston Celtics team. But when it comes to the leadership role, Brad Stevens, I think he said it before game 4 in this case, the impact that Al Horford has had on these young players, it's undeniable, to say the least. We've seen it in video footage, him being able to go the route of, just kind of taking over the huddle. It's kind of like a KG type situation, Igor. KG used to do it when it was him, Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, Rondo, Perk, and Doc, and the rest of the guys here. KG used. I remember one on one specific moment. I forget what game it was, but you had, they even have it on the Boston Celtics championship DVD, where you got KG going. He's like, they don't want to play no pick and roll. He's yelling to the rest of the team, and then he goes over to Rondo, extends his hand to him. Rondo's like 2 chairs over to KG's left, and he tells him, be aggressive. He tells Rondo. Al Horford has kind of taken that type of role for this Boston Celtics team. Absolutely. And of course, knowing that Horford has had did have plenty experience playing against Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, Allen, and Rondo during that time. We all remember that, first year that the Big Four was together, that we ended up winning the whole thing. It was against Al Horford and the Atlanta Hawks that we had our first playoff, series victory, and it went 7 games. So he had plenty of time to basically learn by watching what Garnett was doing, both on and off the court, and just trying to, get some sort of, insight. So he's doing exactly what he needs to do, especially right now under the circumstances this team is facing, knowing that the guy who, would probably be the next, the next one in line, or the top person in line if you think about it, because he's already got the ring to basically prove he knows what has to be done, which would be Kyrie Irving. With the fact that Kyrie Irving is not there right now due to injury, despite the fact that he is in the building. He's been sitting on the bench watching these guys play. The one that he's been giving the personal, information to has been, Terry Rozier, talking to him and trying to, hype him up and give him his thoughts on what he thinks Rozier should do. But Horford has kind of taken over the assistant coaching position with Brad Stevens. And this is what makes this guy so valuable, Igor. Other than what we saw, what we've seen on the court, that alley-oop last night that he made, boy, I thought that glass was going to break with the way he came down on the hoop at that point. It made it a 2-point game with like less than 2 minutes or so left to go. My father literally jumped off the couch when that happened. I'm thinking to myself, boy, you could tell this guy, he's definitely not gonna go the route of taking it easy. I'm thinking to myself, let that be any other player, Igor. Let that be any other player on our team. I don't think that alley-oop goes in, to say the least. The fact that it was Horford, how high he jumped up and how hard he came down with it. The only other player I know of that does that type of a slam, since I've been basically going the route of covering the Celtics, has been Kevin Garnett. He literally looks exactly like the way KG did when KG was here. And this is where I say, this guy has earned his money. He's earned his money. He's earned the right to basically prove that he's, he deserves to stay here long term. Again, who else out there, Igor, can we say in terms of a big man really takes that type of role? There's not too many.
I mean Nikola Jokic, Draymond Green, and I don't know who. Maybe Miles Turner, but not close, and that's it. And Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis.
Well, like I said, you compare Al Horford to many of those guys in this situation. We all know the reputation that many of those guys have as well. We all know Draymond Green. He's one of those guys that you can say, would he be able to get the job done the way Horford has done if Draymond Green was on a team that didn't have Durant?
Right.
Anthony Davis right now is trying to carry a team. In this case, doesn't really have another all-star. He's really the only one there, so you gotta give him credit. And of course, when you look at the names you just mentioned, a lot of those guys also have respect. That's another thing.
Right.
Draymond Green is one guy that I don't think anybody really respects. Especially not many of the fans. Right. Because of a lot of the dirty antics he does. We kicking the boy. He delivered in the finals a couple years ago. That basically cost the Warriors the chance to win that series against LeBron and the Cavaliers back then. Stuff like that. You would not see how Horford even considered in this case. But that guy still to this day continues to act all big and bad. And it's only because he knows he's got the other 3 superstars to back him up. So if he does something to get himself suspended, there's 3 superstars that will do it. That can still get the job done. If he was on another team where he's the only superstar, you wouldn't see that type of crap being done in this case. Because he knows how much it will cost him. So it's a shame, Igor, if you think about it, that every big name player this Celtics team is linked to whether you think of Anthony Davis, Kawhi Leonard, no matter who it is, it always seems like the one player that is having to be mentioned as being traded alongside with Brown or Tatum or Rozier is Al Horford, and that's only because of the fact that he's got to be a money filler in this case, because of the fact that Celtics have to make the money at least get close. It doesn't have to match exactly, but it at least has to be close enough. But what we saw last night and what we saw throughout this series, this guy has proven, if you're gonna make a move to get somebody, you wait until Horford's contract expires with Kyrie Irving's after next season, and then make a move and go over the tax line to keep Al Horford and Irving with you. You do not go trading this guy, but because this guy, like you say with Marcus Smart, Igor, there's too many things Marcus Smart does that's too valuable that doesn't show up on the stat sheet. This guy's the exact same way. Only thing is that he doesn't do it on the floor. He does it on the bench in terms of a motivational type of situation.
I mean, our friend Tyree just tweeted the Sixers just didn't win because they just didn't have the talent to execute in the last 2 minutes, and he's totally right. We need to mention one more guy, the part of the new big three that is very scary, Rozier. These playoffs have been he's playing the best basketball on his career. Maybe he played out his way out of Boston, maybe not, but I think, like Mike Dyer said in the last show, he should stay another year alongside Smart to try to win the title here. Anyway, alongside Kyrie, of course. Kerry, we criticized him on the road. He struggled on the road in that loss, especially number 4 game. In the game 3, he was solid. In the first half, he played bad. He had the good stretch at the end of the first half, but he had the good fourth quarter overall. Anyway, let's start when we said that our analysis of the game number 5. The game lasted 2 hours and 40 minutes, almost the 3 hours. The third period lasted like forever. Too many free throws. The Sixers started JJ Redick, 14 points, plus 11, 3 assists, 2 rebounds, 5 of 13 shooting, 2 of 7 for threes. You mentioned that he missed the clutch 3 and he was not efficient, 2 of 7 for 3. Part of that, Daniel, is because, in my opinion, the Šarić, Embiid, was keeping the ball too much. He was ruining the Sixers' flow in the offense. So JJ Redick, when he missed those threes in the fourth, he was cold. He was not in the rhythm. He is the rhythm shooter. And Dario Šarić, 40 minutes, 27 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 fouls on him, -2, 8 of 14 shooting, 3 of 3 for 3, missed 3 free throws. Monster performance for Šarić. The last 2 games, 25 and 27 points. Šarić was the best player on the court in games 4 and 5 for the Sixers. Simply. He made mistakes down the stretch, lost the ball from the Smart. He tried to post up the Smart, and he just lost his balance, and at the end, he could not carry the Sixers to the win. But overall, great performance from Šarić. He was keeping close the Sixers the whole time with his low post scoring. He has the great post-up game, low scoring game, and he's going to be a terrific player for a long time. Joel Embiid, 40 minutes, 27 points, 12 rebounds, 9 of 18 shooting, but 0 for 4 for threes, +3. Joel Embiid was not the leader the Sixers need, and he cannot be the number one player right now at the championship team. He can be supporting cast maybe. He is holding the ball too much. He is making mistakes in the crucial fourth quarter every time. The Celtics game planned Embiid very well, and he was non-factor in the series, you know. Same with Ben Simmons. TJ McConnell, 9 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, +3, 4 of 7 shooting, 1 of 1. He was living in the paint. He played another good game. He is giving with Šarić energy of to the Sixers in the games 4 and 5. Practically, TJ McConnell, the roller that was discovery for the Sixers. He has the bright future as a backup point guard, but the Sixers need better starting point guard than Ben Simmons. Or they should fix the Ben Simmons or develop Fultz, whatever. Marco Bellinelli, 3 points and -1, one terrible game. Every single time when he was on the floor, Jason Tatum and Marcus Smart tried to post him up, and he was practically unplayable. The Celtics made Marco Bellinelli unplayable. Ilyasova was better than Bellinelli. He was the best reserve with 9 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, -1, 3 of 8 shooting, still bad. 1 of 3 for 3, still bad. But on the defense, he played the 4 when Šarić is playing 5, and when Embiid is on the bench. And I mean, he brought them the toughness, some crazy shoot scoring, and the rebounds. You know, the solid role player, but he's not the game changer. Robert Covington was horrible. 5 points, 1 of 3 for 3, 2 of 5, and -7. Only worst on the floor was Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons -13, despite 18 points, 6 assists, and 8 rebounds. The Celtics made Simmons and Embiid majority of the game non-factors. That was the key. And finally, Robert Covington, again, Smart was posting him up. He was horrible in the defense. He could not shoot the 3. He scored only 1 3. And it is interesting information, Daniel. Then Aaron Baines has 7 threes, more than Robert Covington 6 and Marco Bellinelli 5 in the series, which is crazy statistics. What can you tell us about the Sixers players? You know, when you analyze them in the game number 5.
Well, we all knew, should I say, that Embiid was going to come out and have a great game. He pretty much had a great game, 4 out of the 5. I think the only game that Embiid didn't really do well was, I think, game 2 or game 3, where I think he only scored like 22 points, and even that's a pretty good night overall, you know, compared to what he's usually used to. Šarić, like you said, this was the best game he had of the series, and you know, I think technically if Šarić would have played like that throughout the entire series, then you're talking a totally different game, a different ball game in a different series, instead of you being now headed to the conference finals. Heck, for all you know, you could be the one headed home right now, and they could be going to the conference finals, knowing that, you know, the 3 games that you won in games 2, 3, and 5 were all so close, you know, in this case. But this Philly team, the guys they really got to be looking at are the guys that were supposed to be the key players helping them that didn't show up. Like, for example, you know, Ben Simmons. You know, Ben Simmons is a player that right now everybody's trying to, you know, crown as the Rookie of the Year, despite the fact that some people like me feel he shouldn't even be entitled to having that opportunity, knowing that he really isn't in his rookie year. This is his 2nd year in the league, you know. And, of course, we've already said it, you know, previous times, the advantage, and I've said it before, what advantage he has over Donovan Mitchell and Jason Tatum. The fact that he got to be 1 year in the system, 1 year watching his teammates play, 1 year being around the coaching staff, getting to learn what the coaches want. All that stuff is something that Tatum and Mitchell did not have. They had to learn everything on the fly while still having to play. So that in itself is the reason why I said Simmons shouldn't be entitled to a Rookie of the Year option. And yet here in this series, you had that advantage over Tatum in this case, and yet Tatum still outplayed you. The fact that this guy, I forget exactly who it was earlier that actually brought this stat up in this case, but they were mentioning the shots that Ben Simmons basically was taking, Igor, throughout this series. And they were pretty much admitting how literally this guy looks like he is so afraid of taking any shots outside of 4 feet.
Our friend Sam Packard is calling him Howard, and I think that he deserved it. He printed the jersey, Al Horford guarding Simmons, deep at the paint, and he has like ocean in front of him, and the sign is like shoot the three, Howard.
Exactly. So that's, so that was one thing that was brought up, that, they were saying that he looks so afraid to take a shot anywhere outside of 4 feet from the rim, that this caused the 76ers to have a problem. A key example of it is what happened in the Game 3, matchup in this case, where, of course, we all remember Embiid ended up missing what was basically the basket that should have given them the opportunity to go up by 2, and Simmons ended up getting the rebound. And we all know, if I'm correct, that the free throw line is, further than 4 feet. But Simmons himself is not even a good free throw shooter. So literally, this guy, he's just like a Shaquille O'Neal, Dwight Howard. Yet he's from the
maybe he missed the sport, Danny. Maybe he should play baseball, or maybe he should play like football. He maybe should be the fullback or baseball player, but I don't see complementary, basketball skills. Maybe he will develop them.
Well, that's always a possibility, but, that game, like we said, he's a bad free throw shooter, so even after he got the offensive rebound off Embiid's miss, he ended up throwing it right back up towards the rim, rather than holding it, knowing that we would have had to foul him because we had less than 24 seconds left to go and we were down at the time, or, kicking it out to try and get it to somebody else, or pulling it out. So they say he was basically so afraid of having to go to the free throw line, he threw it up hoping he would get the shot to go in, and it missed. And, of course, we all know the rest of the story with the Celtics, Morris getting the rebound and Horford getting the shot that tied the game up. So Simmons was terrible in this series. We all know Robert Covington, this brother, like I said, I won't be surprised if we see him out of Philadelphia after the way this series went for him. He completely lost his starting position, his starting role to McConnell in this case. McConnell, through the first 3 games, ended up basically making an impact off the bench, while Covington was looking absolutely terrible. He only had one decent game, which was Game 2 in this case. And so they had no choice but to basically remove Covington and try to change something, knowing that if they basically lost Game 4, they would have basically been swept. And so McConnell was thrown in, and it ended up leading to Robert Covington coming off the bench. And even off the bench, he was still having difficulties and was still looking like, he basically was a D-leaguer just coming into the league for the first time. So Robert Covington was absolutely horrendous in this series,
Absolutely.
So the only guys in this series, to me, Igor, that actually did play decent on the Philadelphia side were Embiid, Saric, and Redick. They're the only ones you can give any credit to. Because like I said,
right.
even though...
And McConnell.
And McConnell. So, despite the fact that, like I said, Saric only had one monster game, which was yesterday, he did have other games where he did make some serious impact with offensive rebounds, leading to second chance points, things like that. The bench in this case, other than McConnell in the first few games, the rest of the guys off the bench, like you mentioned, Bellinelli, Ilyasova, all those guys literally stunk up.
They were unplayable. Because when you put Bellinelli there, Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum, and Al Horford, they are attacking them. Boston attacking mismatches precise, just like Greg Popovich did with their Spurs. When you make the small mistake, Boston will figure it out on the fly because those Celtics have intelligence and they will find the mismatch and they will attack it right away. And they attacked with the Smart, with the Jason Tatum, with the Brown, with the Horford on the switches, Robert Covington, Bellinelli, and Ilyasova. And they get them into the foul troubles, and also JJ Redick, those four players, those were the walking mismatches for the Boston Celtics offense, right?
Exactly, that's the thing, that with these guys, it's similar to what we had to deal with when we had Ray Allen and Jason Terry and those guys playing with us at one point with Doc Rivers. There's certain players that they can be sharpshooters, capable of nailing threes, things like that, but there's only a few players that are like that are capable of being sharpshooters, but that are also capable of playing stellar defense. One guy we know that is like that was Avery Bradley. That's one reason why Avery Bradley ended up taking over the starting position from Ray Allen. Once Avery Bradley kind of jumped, got a groove on, and he came onto the scene. Because of the fact that Ray Allen was older, he couldn't keep up with the younger players, and he was basically a defensive liability. Despite the fact that he would give you 3 on one end, he was giving up 3 on the other, and it got to a point where, you're giving up way too many points because you were not fast enough to stay in front of your guy. In this case, it was the same thing. People got to realize that with this Philadelphia team, despite the fact that, they're a young team, those key players, Igor, Bellinelli, Redick, Ilyasova, all those guys are not young. These are not guys that like Tatum, Brown, Embiid, Simmons are in their first or second year or something like that.
The Celtics are younger than the Sixers. That is the fact,
Exactly. In this case, those guys in particular, we're talking about guys that have been in the league for way over 5 years. In this case, why do you think someone like Redick is making $23 million a season? Because he's been in the league for an extended period and has shown that over that time he can be a deadly 3-point shooter, and we saw it in this series and this season overall. Of course, the 76ers are trying to keep, their salary cap flexibility because many teams, including them, want to go after LeBron, which is why they made it only a 1-year deal with Redick. But still, that's one of the reasons why those guys, like you said, were liabilities. You guys are older. You're not, as fast as we need you to be. In this case, you're not tall enough to go blocking somebody's, shot like a Jaylen Brown or a Tatum. So our guys were able to use their speed and their height to take advantage of the mismatches, as you said, which that is another credit to Brad Stevens and his, the coaching job he did in this series, which is why, even after the game yesterday, Brett Brown himself came out and basically admitted, that, once they questioned him about the situation with Brad Stevens not getting any votes for the coaching of the Coach of the Year award from the rest of his peers, he was in absolute shock when they told him that, and he was saying, that he couldn't believe it, and again, he got votes, and many people are kind of questioning how in the world can this guy get it, but yet someone like Brad Stevens can't. But he was saying Brad Stevens did an incredible job in this series, and he made us pay for a lot of the mistakes we ended up making, and that was one of the mistakes in this case. The guys they have on the floor, they give up. You get the benefit of getting the offense, but you do not get the benefit of the defense with those guys. And Brad Stevens just kept attacking them. And again, even the situation on defense, Igor, putting Horford on Ben Simmons, knowing that Horford in this case would be capable of staying in front of Simmons for the most part and just bodying him up and making it where Simmons knew there is no way I'm going to get to the rim unless I actually find some sort of way of getting around Horford, who is a very disciplined defensive player. I am going to have to find a way of settling to make these shots go in over him. And once again, we found the Achilles heel. This is why Brad Stevens, as you said, Greg Popovich is the only other coach, in my opinion, that has any right of being put in the same breath with Brad Stevens right now in this league. Doc Rivers, Brett Brown, Dwayne Casey, all those guys are in the next level below Brad Stevens and Greg Popovich. And the moment Greg Popovich, and now this is something that was being reported earlier today on one of those shows I watch. According to the situation with Brad Stevens not getting any votes, Igor, it does appear that many of the coaches right now are upset with the fact that people are accusing the Celtics of not having any that they're undermanned. So they don't like the fact that the Celtics are getting that term undermanned put on them. So they feel that the Celtics' accomplishment of getting to the Eastern Conference Finals is being made to look even better than what it really is, in their opinion, because they feel, due to the fact that you got Horford, due to the fact that you got two first-round draft picks and Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, and in this case, lottery picks with those guys, from the last 2 years, and those two players are proving that they're going to be, big-time players as they get, later in their careers. They feel the Celtics have plenty of talent in this case to actually get this far, and that Brad Stevens' coaching ability is not what's made the difference. So they feel the fact that Brad Stevens being so praised has actually basically made it where they're upset about it, and they're not happy with the fact that Brad Stevens has basically, Igor, cut the line to the front ahead of all these other coaches like Dwayne Casey, like Doc Rivers, like Mike D'Antoni. They are not happy with the fact that Brett Brown, somebody who, Brad Stevens, who just got into the league, who has a losing record in this case, according to them, in the playoffs. We would have to, look back at that to verify if that's absolutely true. But according to them, they feel that, it is not right that Brad Stevens has been given the right to cut ahead of all these other coaches who have been in the league far longer, to have the title of best coach in the league given to him, when they feel all these other coaches who have been doing it for longer in the league should be given that title once Greg Popovich basically steps out of the way.
Okay, and let's mention the Celtics players and analyze what went wrong for the Sixers in that game. Jason Tatum, 39 minutes, 25 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists, shooting 8 of 15, 9 of 11 free throws, 0 plus minus, 25 points. The first player in the Celtics history, the first rookie to have 7 games, 20 plus points per game in the playoffs. Also, the first player since 2004 and 5 postseason for Pierce to have 7 plus games with 20 plus points. Alpha for 15 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists, plus 8, 7 of 16 shooting. He was clutch. He was great. Aaron Baines had amazing game, almost double-double, 13 points and 9 rebounds, 1 assist. I'm sorry that he didn't have double-double officially. He was -6, shooting 5 of 8 and shooting 1 of 2 for 3. That 3 was pivotal in the Celtics run during the last 5 minutes of the second quarter. The Celtics had like 18-6 run and finished the halftime with 8 points lead. Jaylen Brown, the best player last night, in my opinion, despite Tatum has 25. Jaylen Brown, 24 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 31 minutes, 10 of 13. He was shooting 3 of 4 for 3. He was absolutely the scoring one option at the Celtics, and he killed it. It is good that we saw that his Achilles heel, his right hamstring is healed. Terry Rozier, 17 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, +5, 4 of 15 shooting, 3 of 9 for threes, and 6 rebounds, 2 assists, 17 points. I didn't think that he had a great game, but he was clutch. He didn't shoot well majority of the game, 4 of 15. He shot 3 of 9 for threes, which is 33%, which is bad. But he had flashes at the end of second quarter, and he was clutch. He made a steal. He made layup for the 194 lead. He made the key 3 in the clutch time, and he was good again in the clutch time, but he didn't have the best game. Marcus Morris, the horrible game overall. He was solid defensively, but 5 fouls, 6 points, -1, 1 of 10 shooting, 0 for 2, 0-2 for 3. Horrible game. He must be better, and we need him maybe to start. If Love starts at 5, I think that Morris will start alongside Horford. Marcus Smart, he was clutch, absolutely. He did amazing things down the stretch. We will talk separately about him. 14 points, 3 of 8 shooting, and +10. 14.6 rebounds, 6 assists. Shemi Ojale, 8 minutes, 20 seconds, -6 without offensive performance. Now, what went wrong for the Sixers? Points in the paint, Sixers 54, Celtics 48. The Sixers 27 out of 46. The Celtics had the Philly had +6 in the points in the paint. The second chance points, Philadelphia 7 and Celtics 15. That was one of the keys. When you look at the turnovers, 16-10 for Philadelphia, and points of turnovers, both the Celtics 15 and Philadelphia 7. The Celtics forced more turnovers, and they had +8, in the second chance points, one of the keys. Points in the paint +6, but with the second chance points, the Celtics neutralized, that points in the paint. Fast break points, the Celtics 15 and 12. This is a big Philly weapon. The Philly shooted 4 of 8 fast break, 50%, and the Celtics shooting 6 of 10, 60%. So the Celtics were +3, the fast break points. Practically, the Celtics were better, +8 in the second chance points and +3 in the fast break points, the two big keys. Also, we looked the whole series, Daniel, from the 3-point line. Philadelphia from the 3-point line +3. They won the battle. This is one of the reasons why the game was close. Philadelphia +3 from the 3-point line. And also, I think that that's practically it. The game was close, but I must say that the Celtics scored 31 free throws and Philadelphia 24. They missed like 7 free throws. So basically, the Celtics one of the key advantages from the free throw line. The Philly has had +3 from the 3-point line, but the key advantage to the Celtics from the free throw line +7. Your opinion about overall game analyzing, Daniel?
When it comes to those stats you just mentioned, let's turn this up a bit. So when it comes to what you just mentioned with the Celtics in this case, I say with those stats that unfortunately Marcus Morris, I do not know what the heck has happened to him. This is the second playoff series in a row that Marcus Morris has looked absolutely pathetic, and we are definitely going to need something more from him going into this next round, knowing that you're going to be facing LeBron in this case, and it's going to be hard enough stopping LeBron James, knowing when he has a bad game, he's going to score close to 30 points. It's going to be hard. It's going to be even worse when he's on his game and he's nailing his free throws, he's nailing his jumpers, he's nailing his threes. So, Marcus Morris has definitely got to get it going, has got to make it where we have another viable shooter on the floor, because one of the things, and in this case that we can say, helped seal the deal yesterday was Aaron Baines and his shooting in this case throughout this series. Aaron Baines was the one that had the job of having to stay in front of Joel Embiid and trying to turn Joel Embiid into a jump shooter and a three-point shooter rather than a layup and dunk type player. And Aaron Baines, of course, throughout the series did not get some of the respect from the officials he needed when it came to the calls that should have been offensive foul calls on Embiid, and instead it came to either no calls or fouls on Baines instead. But Aaron Baines did enough, Igor. That's the key. You got to do enough at least to make sure your team gets the win. And you look at last night, up until halftime, you had at one point, I believe it was either in the second quarter or in the third, where Aaron Baines got that dunk that was put in, and Joel Embiid and him kind of got into a bit of a confrontation where Joel Embiid actually pushed Aaron Baines out of the way. And so, of course, Aaron Baines, did kind of flop a bit, but, doing so caused Joel Embiid to get a technical foul in his, dealt his way. And you ended up having, I believe it was Tatum or Horford who went to the line at that point and made the free throw. Think, even something like that, Igor, is critical. If Joel Embiid doesn't basically lose his cool, that's another free throw that we don't make. And instead of you losing by 2, now you lose by now you're only down 1. So it's stuff like that you gotta consider. Aaron Baines yesterday, up to that point where him and Embiid had that confrontation, Aaron Baines, I believe he was at like 15 or 13 points while Embiid was at 15 or 17. So I know they were like 2 points within each other, with Embiid just 2 points ahead. And I'm saying, Embiid is losing it. He's losing, his cool, because Aaron Baines right now is actually keeping up with him. Up to that point, Aaron Baines had already nailed 2 3-point shots in this game. And, technically you could say a majority of the damage that Embiid did last night was whenever he had Horford or Marcus Morris on him. Aaron Baines pretty much limited the damage Embiid was able to do when Baines was on the floor. So, Embiid, lost his cool at that point. So Aaron Baines, I think, is one of the unsung heroes in this series. Because if Aaron Baines does not have, a series, think about it. They said it, again, one of the shows I watched this morning mentioned Aaron Baines and his performance. Aaron Baines in this series hit more 3-pointers than he hit all of the regular season combined. Think about
that.
And
he hit more 3-pointers than Bellinelli and Robert Covington.
Look at that. Even that, Igor, is an embarrassment on those players. And that's another thing that Philly fans should be looking at and saying, we can't blame the officials. We got to blame our guys. Aaron Baines, somebody who's not really a decent three-point shooter, ends up making more three-point shots in this series than two guys you're paying for that are supposed to be able to make those shots in their sleep, pretty much. That in itself tells you why you really lost this series. But Aaron Baines deserves a lot of credit because those shots he made yesterday. He had a putback dunk on one of the misses we had where he literally went right over, I believe it was Ilyasova for it, and just slammed it right back in with Ilyasova right in front of him. So there was a few things he did throughout this series that you can kind of say, for one, where the heck has this been all season? What were you just saving this for this time? Was your talent kind of locked away in a safe or something like that, or a security box, something like that, in a bank, waiting for you to unleash it when we needed it the most? Where was this all season long? For this Boston team when we really needed it, because we could have been maybe even the 1 seed if you would have actually played like this the entire year. So he did a great job. Yesterday, like I said, Al Horford made the big plays when it mattered most. Jason Tatum was your best player throughout the entire game, making some of the big time shots. Jaylen Brown, of course, being able to go back into the starting lineup yesterday, I think was also a really good sign. The fact that, even though they tried to, according to what what was being reported, they were going to try to still limit his minutes, but they wanted him to go back into the starting lineup to try and get a better start than what they were getting in Philadelphia with Marcus Smart out there, and try to get Jaylen into a groove. And boy, did this guy come out on fire, making the first few shots of the game for the Boston Celtics. And it's a good thing, like you said, and we mentioned it on our radio show the night before, it was going to be critical to make sure you won yesterday's game, not only to make sure you didn't give Philadelphia any, hopes that maybe they could possibly win Game 6 and push it to Game 7, but also to make sure that Jaylen Brown would get some time to heal up that hamstring injury before having to go at it with LeBron and the Cavs on Sunday afternoon, knowing that Jaylen Brown is going to be one of the guys responsible for trying to have to guard LeBron James. So it was an absolute great performance. Like you said, we had 6 guys in double figures, in this game. And it's, of course, it's, off the bench, you would have expected Marcus Morris to do a little bit more. But the fact that it was, again, Igor, how would you say, a balanced attack, we are not going to see that from Cleveland. That's one thing I can almost guarantee you. You know that LeBron's going to get 40 or 50, but after that, what can we say? The next guy is going to come up with maybe 18, 20 points. After that, what? 7, 8, something like that. If you can have it like that, where you're keeping the scoring like that for LeBron's guys, you have a chance. But with this team this season in the playoffs, Igor, the Celtics have kind of made it where every game it's been a balanced attack in this case with 4, 5, 6 different players all scoring, nearly 15 points a game. And again, that is one thing that's going to be a key. And so you got to give these guys a ton of credit. Again, Al Horford made the big shots. Brad Stevens went right back to him down the stretch for him to try and make it where the moment he started going off and he started attacking, which I think it was Ilyasova who was in the game at that time, that Brad Stevens kept giving him the ball to go one-on-one with. The moment that the 76ers realized Ilyasova couldn't stop this guy, that's when everybody else, Tatum, started attacking. Of course, he got whacked in the face on what ended up being the game-winning basket, but whacked in the face, no call, and yet Tatum still managed to force it up and in. He kind of looked at the referee like, where the heck is the call in this situation? Knowing that was a shot to the face and no call was made. But if it wasn't for Horford taking over the way he did in the last 3 minutes and making several key baskets to where Philadelphia started feeling they had to double team him, which opened it up for everybody else, and you saw guys actually cut to the rim rather than just waiting beyond the three-point line like we were usually seeing whenever we lost in the regular season, things like this, we probably would have ended up losing yesterday's game. I just hope that we continue to see that in the next round, where our guys are continuing to cut to the rim rather than just settling to stay beyond the three-point line and hoping that basically our guy, Horford in this case, if it's him with the ball, can force up a shot, and if he gets double-teamed, there's no moving around. You got to keep moving the ball, just like you did yesterday in order to be successful, and keep making it a balanced attack. Don't try to have anybody play any hero ball, because it always comes back to bite us when that happens.
I have interesting informations, the predictions about the Celtics, and now this is the right moment to, mention those who picked up the Sixers to win the series. Those writers, journalists, hosts that picked Philadelphia to win it were Kevin Arnovitz, Ian Begley, Jerry Bemory, Amin Aksai, Jeremy Engelman, and Andrew Hann, Chris Hayes, Zach Lowe, the famous one, Philadelphia, Tim McCone, Bobby Marks, David McEnany, Kevin Felton, and the list go on and on to the Celtics writers, including Mark D'Amico and everybody else. Only ones who predicted the Celtics wins are Chris Forsberg and Nick Friedel. Congratulations on objectivity and good professional analysis to Chris Forsberg and Nick. And I just want to say it is the right time, the people, to stop underrating the Celtics. Daniel, let's look now, before we move to talking about the players and a little in general, let's look at the advanced statistics net rating. Again, net rating is offensive rating minus defensive rating. Offensive rating is number of points scored per 100 possessions. Defensive rating is number of points allowed per 100 possessions. Net rating is offensive rating minus defensive rating. In Sixers, the best net rating have JJ Redick, 6.7. The next one is Ersan Ilyasova, 5.2. The number 3 is Marco Bellinelli, 4.3. And TJ McConnell, actually the third, TJ McConnell, 4.6. And Bellinelli, 4.3. So, Redick, McConnell, Bellinelli, Ilyasova. The worst net rating has Ben Simmons. While Ben Simmons was on the floor, the Celtics outscored the Sixers 19.5 points per 100 possessions. Robert Covington, the second worst, minus 7.1. While Robert was on the floor, the Celtics outscored the Sixers 7.1 points per 100 possessions. Šarić was the third worst, minus 2.9. So, despite the big game, while Šarić was on the floor, the Celtics outscored the Sixers 2.9 points per 100 possessions. In the Celtics jersey, the best rating has Marcus Smart. You never doubt in it, right? We will talk Smart soon. 11.4. Then Al Horford, the second best net rating, 8.7, which means while the Smart was on the floor, we outscored the Sixers 11.4. while Horford was on the floor, we outscored the Sixers 8.7 points per 100 possessions. The next one is Terry Rozier 2.2 and Jason Tatum 2. The worst negative rating on the Celtics has Semi Ojeleye in his 8 minutes and 20, minus 24. From the players that played more than 24 minutes, Marcus Morris has the worst net rating, minus 5.3, which is expectedly, and surprisingly Jaylen Brown, minus 4.2. Though I don't think it is Jaylen Brown's fault, and Aaron Baines, minus 0.9, but it is practically zero. So Danny, is it surprising you that Simmons is the worst player net rating on the court, and on the other side that Smart is the best net rating on the court?
I'm not surprised about the Simmons situation, because for one, again, we all know the net rating, how that whole thing works. Again, if you're someone that doesn't know, net rating just simply says how much your team was outscored by with you on the court compared to with you off the court. Basically, that's simply it. And when you look at Simmons, with him, like I said, the brother couldn't buy a basket, Igor, unless he was 2 feet from the rim, literally. You know, as we said earlier, he was a wimp he was a wimp when it came to even thinking of trying to take a jumper or a three-pointer. You know, it was like literally, you know, he had a key, locked, you know, went to the computer in his brain and literally, you know, gave it the command, don't think about jumpers, don't think about threes. You know, any of those things come up, any of those ideas, you know, make it like a virus, you know, and use the virus, you know, protection in you to actually, you know, clean it out, because that is not an option for us to actually go with, you know. And so, literally, as long as the Celtics didn't allow him to get to the rim, he couldn't buy a basket. That is one reason why McConnell ended up basically becoming one of the Philadelphia 76ers' best players. And like I said, you can argue maybe their second best player behind Embiid. If not, you can maybe argue the third if you want to put Redick as the second best because of how great of a series he had. But, you know, Simmons, due to the fact that he has not developed a jump shot, he is not a good free throw shooter, the Celtics exploited that and told him pretty much, we will let Embiid do whatever he wants in this case, but we are not going to let you do it. You know, I think you can say the Celtics kind of learned a lesson from round one by going through Antetokounmpo and Middleton. The only issue is that Middleton is somebody that is a decent shooter. So despite the fact that you try to do whatever you could to stop Middleton, to make it where Antetokounmpo was the only, you know, player to try and beat you that you wanted, you know, Middleton just kept nailing the shots regardless of what you did to him. You know, so Simmons is not that same type of player. Simmons does not have the type of shooting ability that Middleton has. So the stuff that wasn't working against Middleton worked to perfection against Simmons. You know,
yeah.
So it's the same type of thing if you think about it, that you look at the next round, you got to consider who you're going to do that type of stuff against when it comes to the players for Cleveland. The guys that really don't have a good jump shot or a good three-point shooting ability. You know, it's this, you know, Brad Stevens is going to be using the same type of, you know, of role. So Simmons, I'm not surprised. Now, the Marcus Smart situation with him being the best one, that one I am surprised in this case, you know, because again, Marcus Smart, you know, did have a few decent games, but it wasn't like he was shooting the lights out. But once again, like I said earlier, it's all about who you were on the court with and at what times and what type of impact basically the rest of your teammates had more than just yourself. So, you know, it can be understandable. It doesn't really mean that he was great. It could be simply that the rest of the guys on the floor for him were great because he spent a lot of time on the floor with Horford, Brown, Tatum, and Rozier. That was the lineup we saw last night. And at that time, Igor, I actually was against it. Because I felt that at that time, Horford was already up to 4 fouls, and at that time, that's when Embiid and the 76ers were starting to make a run to get back into the game by going to Embiid on every play. And I was saying...
Stevens explained that. He said that they started double teaming Joel Embiid in those moments so that Horford can stay on the floor because they need Horford on the offensive end, you know?
Yeah.
And that way the Horford preserved himself. The Celtics were sending the help to Horford from the wings.
Yeah.
Brown,
but that's the thing. That's why I was kind of against the lineup Brad Stevens had in there. I kind of felt that if anything, Aaron Baines should have been brought back into the game at that point to get Horford off of Embiid and put Baines on him to try and slow down the momentum so like that there was no need to risk leaving, Ilyasova, Saric, Redick, and all these other guys wide open, all because you're trying to get the ball out of Embiid's hands. We know odds are, Baines wouldn't be shooting, even though he is capable of making some shots. But in this situation, you were risking the possibility of Horford getting another foul. And if not, you're risking wide open 3-pointers going in. You got to admit, we were lucky, Igor, despite the fact that we're happy with the results. You are lucky to be going to the conference finals in just 5 games. Remember, that 3-pointer that Redick took that was wide open, the 76ers at that time were up 2. If Redick makes that 3-pointer, which like I said earlier, that 3-pointer was closer to the rim than the 3-pointer he nailed with us up by 4 towards the end of the game. So if he nails that 3, all of a sudden they go up by 5 with less than 2 minutes to go, rather than us basically getting the ball back by him missing it and us having a chance to tie it, which we ultimately did. So you took a risk there if you're Brad Stevens. You took a risk by keeping Marcus Smart, Tatum, Brown, Rozier, and Horford as your lineup because of the fact that you decided to double team Embiid rather than taking one of those guys out. And ultimately, when he realized it, Igor, right after that 3-pointer by Redick was missed and we tied it up, the next stoppage of play, he took Jaylen Brown out and threw Aaron Baines right back in. And I'm saying to myself, you should have done that from the get-go. If you would have done that from the get-go when the Celtics, I think they were up 7 at that point when that lineup went in together, and then the 76ers chopped it down, like I said, to where they took the lead. If you would have done that from the get-go, you probably would still be up at this point. You wouldn't probably be tied at this time. So I do think there's a few things that Brad Stevens still has to realize, like in a situation like that, just because you're hoping to basically get the offense from these guys doesn't mean you sacrifice the defense, knowing that the only player you had available that could truly stop Embiid was Aaron Baines throughout this series. So we lucked out, and you can say he lucked out, Brad Stevens, because if you would have lost last night, and if it would have been because Redick nails that 3-pointer wide open because you had a man leave Redick, all because he double-teamed Embiid because of Horford having too many fouls, all of that would have came right back on the head of Brad Stevens. So again, we can live with it, Igor, with the way things went and all that. We can celebrate, but I do think there's a few things that have to be fixed going into the next round because mistakes like that we cannot afford to have happen against a team like LeBron James and the Cavaliers.
I have another great information for you and for our viewers and listeners. The lineups statistics. Net ratings of the lineups in the playoffs. Again, the lineup that is best and that played the most minutes, 61, and had record 5 and 3 is Brown, Horford, Morris, Rozier, Tatum. And again, I will repeat, the lineup of Brown, Horford, Morris, Rozier, Tatum. This is why I expect, Daniel, this lineup to start the series against Cavaliers, especially if they put Love on 5 and start LeBron on 4. Again, Morris on 4, Horford on 5, Rozier, Tatum, Brown. That lineup is 5 and 3, 61 minutes. The best offensive rating 128.6, defensive rating 110.2, and the net rating 18.4. The second best lineup is with Shemi Ojole, the famous lineup that defeated Bucks practically in the games 5, 6, 7. Lineup of Rozier, Brown, Tatum, Shemi Ojole, and Horford. Semi on 4, Horford on 5. That lineup has 17.2. That is lineup to be considered also, especially against Cavaliers' second units. Lineup Brown, Horford, Ojole, Rozier, Tatum. That lineup plus 17.2 net rating. The lineup with Baines and Horford and Rozier and Smart, the starting lineup has 4 and 1, 44 minutes, plus 3.8. This is like average. The lineup that played small minutes, 32 minutes, but also has extremely high net rating, plus 33.3, is the lineup that started of Jason Tatum, Al Horford, Terry Rozier, Morris, and Smart. Again, that lineup with Horford, Rozier, Tatum, Morris, and Smart, it has the best, almost the best defensive rating, 85.7 among the lineups with 30 plus minutes, and it has, the best rating of all lineups, 33.3. But he didn't play enough, just like 32 minutes with Tatum, Al Horford, Morris, Rozier, Smart. Do you want to comment something about it, Daniel?
Well, I think when it comes to that lineup that you mentioned, if Marcus Morris gets himself going, then maybe you consider it, like you said, and it's only if we have a lineup of Kevin Love at the 5, and then LeBron James at the 4. However, I do have a feeling that we will see Tristan Thompson in this series starting because of the fact that Tristan Thompson has had a history of dominating, which means that you are going to have to depend on Aaron Baines more than anything to start in this case because of the fact that, Aaron Baines is the tallest big man you have, alongside Al Horford. But it still does not change a thing when it comes to the fact that we are going to need Aaron Baines and Marcus Morris to really step it up in the next round because of the fact that Tristan Thompson, we all know what he is like. Tristan Thompson is not like Antetokounmpo. He is not like Joel Embiid. Tristan Thompson is more like a Hassan Whiteside. Hassan Whiteside, as I said in regards to why it was easier to beat Miami than it would be to beat any of those other teams that were in the bottom 4, is because of the fact that the only big man they had is Whiteside, and Whiteside can't do anything but dunk and layup. That's really it. He's like a Ben Simmons. Outside of the paint, the guy is worthless for your team, pretty much. He's just a waste of space on the floor. And then on the defensive end, the guy, all he does is basically pack the paint up, meaning that pretty much you got a chance of either getting an offensive 3-second violation called against you, or he's basically blocking your team's chance of getting to the rim in this position because he's got his man basically right there blocking the area with him, allowing his defender to have the right to be in the paint. So Tristan Thompson is the same way. The only issue is that, unlike Whiteside, Tristan Thompson actually puts, he actually has the hustle and he puts the effort to go after the ball which is why with us we've had so many issues with him. That he has the effort, he puts the effort in to get the offensive rebound, to then lay it up or dunk it. Our guys, like I said, if there is no Tristan Thompson, which of course many people were kind of wondering if he was even going to play in the playoffs due to whatever was going on in his personal life, but in this series, Marcus Morris is going to have his impact, Igor, in my opinion, off the bench. As simple as that. Unless Tristan Thompson, for whatever reason, goes the route of saying he's not going to be able to play because something came up with his personal issues again, or he suffers an injury, then Marcus Morris can come in because he is capable of defending Kevin Love. Kevin Love is not someone like an Embiid and is not someone like an Antetokounmpo. Kevin Love does not have any real athleticism, is not someone that has a lot of speed. So Marcus Morris can stay in front of him without any problem. Other than that, Aaron Baines is going to have to stay in front of Tristan Thompson, and it's just going to have to make it where he puts up just as much as Tristan Thompson does. You don't have to outscore him, but just make it where he is not dominating that matchup. So while you're with 2 points, he's coming up with 15. No, you got to keep that matchup close because, again, it is going to be tough as it is beating this team with knowing they got the best player on the floor each game and knowing that you got the officiating situation that we all know is going to go LeBron's favor in this case because it always happens every time we play LeBron. The officiating goes in the Cavaliers' favor. You cannot make it where any of these other matchups completely go one-sided in Cleveland's favor as well. So Morris, he comes off the bench. You better make sure the bench is going Boston's direction by you actually having one decent playoff series. I tell you, this guy doesn't bring it, Igor. This series, I might actually consider trading him. As simple as that.
Yeah. I mean, Morris has contract for the next year, but we will see. He was useful this year. I think that he will stay. Anyway, I think that, like I said, if Love is on 5 and if James is on 4, we will see Morris starting over Baines. I mentioned that lineup plus 18.2 net rating in 61 minutes, and we are 5-1 with that lineup. As now in the playoffs, like you said, if Tristan Thompson is starting, then Baines is starting and guarding Tristan Thompson, and Marcus Morris is from the bench. But anyway, Marcus Morris will have to guard LeBron off the bench or starting, whatever. I think that he will finish the games and he will have to guard LeBron James because Al Horford cannot do it. Al Horford must operate at the perimeter, and those two guys, even Monroe, must do the job protecting the paint. Morris, Baines, and Monroe. Let's now return to the game. In the game 5, it was Smart doing the smart things. In the closing moments on Wednesday game number 5 over Sixers, Marcus Smart had Marcus Smart moments. With Boston at 113, 112, Smart, who missed the first free throw, tried intentionally to miss the second, but instead it went in. That meant Philadelphia would have chance to throw a long pass, potentially tie the game up or win with a 3. So the pass is thrown deep, but who do you think catch the ball? Marcus Smart. Interception pass. It's not always pretty, but sometimes it doesn't go your way. When the game is on the line, more often than not, Smart will be game changer. The game 5 wins over Sixers, which eliminated the Sixers from the playoffs, while the Celtics move on to the Eastern Conference Finals, where they will face LeBron James and Cleveland Cavaliers. It's hard to look past Smart's impact at both ends of the floor and not acknowledge how vital he was to Boston moving on another round. And Dario Saric gave Boston fits most of the game, including Smart, who is about 6 inches shorter. Late in the game, Šarić tried to back Smart down in the post, only for Smart to back off him the last minute, which led to Šarić losing the ball, and doing so would serve as one of the many Clark's plays by the Celtics in the closing minutes in the fourth. Smart also had late game putback in Jason Tatum miss, and the teammates will at least even with the best intention, the teammates trust Smart, and that ending the game sequence with him on the free throw line intending to miss, and then bounce back to catch the lob. It is Smart on his best. Some comments about Clark Smart.
We as fans all know what Marcus Smart is all about. It's no different than what we've seen before Igor. This guy has been doing it his entire career. Of course, we don't like the fact that he takes some unnecessary risk, that has cost him and cost us at times, like the situation of him diving on the floor that caused him to have that finger injury that took nearly 2 months out of his season this year. But this guy is one of the special players in this league when it comes to the defensive, side of the ball. This guy, you ask any player out there, and I'm sure they'll tell you, they've been guarded at some point by this guy, and they absolutely hate it. This guy just, is one of those guys that finds a way of trying to get in your head and really messing with you. In this case, some people look at him and say that when it comes to like his Boston Bruins equivalent, they kind of look at him and say he's kind of like Brad Marchand. Of course, Brad Marchand, he doesn't feel underhanded things that kind of like agitate the other players. Brad Marchand likes to go picking players in the face, messing with them, trying to get them to get a little, off their game. This guy, on the other hand, he just gets right up into you and really just gets you uncomfortable. And think about it. We've seen it with James Harden. With those 2 offensive foul calls that allowed Boston to steal the game from Houston earlier this season. We've seen it in the past when he's gone at it with some of the better players like Dwayne Wade, players like that. The interesting thing, Igor, is that that's 2 players in a row Brad Stevens has had that is similar like that. Avery Bradley was the same type of player. That's the reason, again, as I said earlier, that Avery Bradley won the starting job over Ray Allen all those years ago, which kind of started to the situation of Avery Bradley, or should I say Ray Allen, and the team kind of separating because of the fact that Avery Bradley was able to play defense and was faster than Ray Allen. Avery Bradley got the starting knob, and Avery Bradley was able to stop someone like Dwayne Wade, and he made Dwayne Wade a non-factor in those playoff matches against the Miami Heat. The only issue was the Celtics could not stop LeBron James and Chris Bosh in those matchups all those years ago. Plus the rest of the the roster on that team, the bench players and all of that. So Marcus Smart is the same player. At least on the defensive end. Marcus Smart can actually just get the 3-point shooting part of him to actually be consistent. You would make it where pretty much you could say Terry Rozier, it would be fine to trade him away at that point. Because you would have another Avery Bradley now on your team. One that, in this case, in my opinion, he's even more ferocious when it comes to getting physical with these guys and these top players. He is one that has, take no prisoners type attitude. He is not afraid to get into it with any of these players. You know, Terry Rozier is kind of starting to develop that because of the, look at the way he got into it with Joel Embiid during this series. You know, and of course Joel Embiid kind of took it as a way of joking on Rozier's height. And of course Luka's got the last laugh now. As we were all saying in the show, wait till after you won the series to start talking junk. Because it could make you look like a donkey's rear to be talking trash, and yet you're the one eliminated. But this guy, if Marcus Smart can actually just hit the three-pointer on a consistent basis, I'm not talking about becoming as good a three-point shooter as Jason Tatum or some of these bigger-name players like a Curry or a Durant or Klay Thompson, players like that. But if he can hit it just as good as Terry Rozier does, you make it where Terry Rozier now, it's not necessary to go paying the guy as much as he may be worth. You may be better off giving Marcus Smart now the money he wants and trading Terry Rozier away for the basically the whatever assets you can get, because of the fact that Marcus Smart has been here longer. He is proving he's willing to dive on the floor and sacrifice his body, something that, in my opinion, Igor, we have yet to see from Terry Rozier. We do not see Terry Rozier diving on the floor for loose balls. We do not see him taking big shots, from bigger players for offensive foul calls, like you saw last night when Marcus Smart took it from Saric, down the stretch that led to the turnover for Al Horford, stealing the ball from Saric. Things like that Terry Rozier has not yet shown he is willing to make a commitment to. Now, you can say maybe it's because Rozier also knows how important he is at this current time with Kyrie Irving, Shane Larkin, and Hayward and all these guys being out, and he knows we can't afford to lose him at this point because he's the only point guard left on this roster. But even during the regular season, how many times did we get to see that from Rozier compared to Marcus Smart? It's probably a bigger than 3 or 4 to 1, gap, we can say. So I would, my opinion, if Marcus Smart wants to get paid, Igor, that's the only thing he needs to fix is his jump shooting and 3-point shooting ability. If he could get that job done, he makes it where now there is no excuse for us not to be willing to pay this guy to bring him back. You trade Terry Rozier at that point, the $3, $4, $5 million you got to give Rozier now, you give it to Marcus Smart. Because Marcus Smart has proven he can be a pest defending James Harden, Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, all these other big-name players. At some point during the times he's played them, he has made some sort of an issue for them in the games we've gone at it with them. Terry Rozier has not been able to do that yet, and I don't think he will ever be able to do that like the way Marcus Smart has done.
Yeah, we will see what happens with two of them. We will discuss that more in the summer. Anyway, on the supposed Celtics and the Sixers talent discrepancy, are the Sixers really that much more talented than this Celtics team? Before the series, it was given that Philly has the edge over Boston talent-wise. Are we so sure? Can we talk about the talent thing right now? Coming into the Eastern Conference semifinals, the Sixers were given the deciding advantage over Celtics after all, and they have one of the best young men in game, Joel Embiid, and presumptive Rookie of the Year, Ben Simmons. There is a reasonable case to be made that Embiid and Simmons were among the 20 best players in the league this year, regardless of their youth and inexperience. Add to that Philly's decisive first-round series against the Heat, during which Simmons and Embiid were the two best players on the floor. Expectations were stratospherical high. We have jumped into this quicker way than any of us expected, Brown said. We were all kind of hoping to make the playoffs. Then we got real greedy and wanted to win 50 games. Then we wanted home court. Then we wanted to be Milwaukee and finish third. Then we wanted the great series to win Miami, so the table is set the expectations are set and you can redial it. No, you can't. Brown can control expectations, and he's made no effort to downplay them also. And his relentlessly upbeat persona is much part of Philly's dynamic as his two young stars. He has tried to put any limitations on them, and it wouldn't matter if he did, so why bother? Yet, in the discussion surrounding the series, it seems like the Celtics players were given a shrift. Some of that obviously is due to absence of Hayward and Irving. Their injuries, the Celtics season, from the contention, prevented the Celtics season from the contention. Some of the apparent talent disparity, they said against Milwaukee in the first round. While the Sixers were rolling, the Celtics were in the 7 games, and the limits of their roster were evident with the interception of Semi Ojeleye in the starting lineup. Now that was done. The Celtics won the series. So Brad Stevens spreading the magic of the court. This is the team with 2 top 3 picks from consecutive drafts. A fearless young point guard who is growing into leading role, and the grown-up all-star Horford. The difference is that unlike the Sixers, the Celtics didn't come into the season with designs on building around their young core, while Tatum and Brown began the season as the starters with Irving and Hayward on hand with the roles were supposed to be complementary, which is why it's easy to forget that Tatum and Brown were both top 3 picks with the future all-star aspirations of their own. Tatum in particular performed well beyond the years this postseason. His scoring has been sublime, and his ability to create offense adds a dimension that the Celtics lacked previous year. Jaylen Brown's ceiling is impossible to know. His came so far, so fast, that no one really able to pinpoint with any clarity just what kind of player he will eventually become. What we can say with the certainty is that he plays winning basketball, and he does that with complete confidence in his ability. The revelation has been the third star in Terry Rozier. The third-year player emerged as legit starting point guard. Considering he spent chunk of rookie season in Maine and most of second season back to end of rotation player, this postseason has been a surprise. It's true that Rozier performed well during the regular season when he filled for Irving in January, but no one saw this coming. Rozier's star turn came with all kinds of ramifications for the future of the Celtics team. His extension eligible this summer, and the Celtics will also have to make decisions on Smart in the free agency. While we are here, Marcus Smart or Robert Covington, Aaron Baines or Amir Johnson, Marcus Morris or Ersan Ilyasova, Shane Larkin or TJ McConnell. It's now we can say Smart over Covington, Baines over Johnson outplayed, Ilyasova outplayed Morris, and Larkin was hurt, but while Larkin was playing, he outplayed McConnell. Irving, meanwhile, has 1 more year left on the deal because he can opt out of the contract. That is a lot of guards looking to be paid, but the problem is that any team in the league would gladly accept. What the Celtics have, the Sixers don't in the moment is Horford. Al Horford cast somewhat dismissively a secondary star throughout career. Horford has been the best player on the court in games 5 and 7 in the first round against Giannis. He's been most impactful player in the series against Sixers too. Horford is Celtics security blanket. Stevens gave him any assignment offensively and defensively, and he knows what to do. Even with Irving and Hayward on the team, Horford gravity extends throughout the locker room and on the court. Philadelphia dynamic is different. Their veteran JJ Redick, who wonderful and leader and example, but the leadership arc is to Embiid and Simmons, who are learning how to grow. My goal, said Brown, to keep growing Ben and Joel and to, add Markel Fultz. That's going to be the team. None of this means to excuse the Sixers for lost the series. They were favorites for the reason and their inability to hold on the leads in both games 2 and 3 and now 5 reinforced what have been said. They have only themselves to blame for the loss. Yet, it's well past time to recognize that the Celtics have the talent, and this is a very good team playing the best basketball of the season. Their defense the best in the league, and as much as the Sixers had opportunity, the talent, that's more than coaching, and it is way more than luck and fortune. That is the talent, and the Celtics are, without the star power, just more talented team in the series, Daniel. And that is why Celtics won this series. This is the last topics. Do you want to comment on the subject?
Interesting how everybody looks at that word, Igor, depending on who it is. You look at the coaches with the information we gave out earlier in regards to the fact that they feel, the Celtics have plenty of talent, and so because of it, Brad Stevens doesn't deserve any consideration for Coach of the Year. Yet someone like Mike D'Antoni, who's got Chris Paul and James Harden, basically is given consideration. Someone like, again, Dwayne Casey, who had his best players, DeRozan and Lowry, all season long, unlike Brad Stevens, who lost Irving and Hayward, and lost Hayward the very first game of the season. Casey got more votes than him. Popovich, of course, he's got, he didn't have Leonard, but he's got, Aldridge. He's got 2 future Hall of Famers in Ginobili and Parker. Yet, they don't have, it appears basically, if you go according to the coaches, Brad Stevens gets no consideration. So I guess, Igor, none of those teams have talent. That's simply the way they're making it look. Those teams don't have any talent, so because of it, we got to give those guys the coaching, the coaching edge, because Boston has too much talent. Come on. How many times have we seen Steve Kerr get consideration for Coach of the Year since he got Curry, Durant, Curry, and all them together? And you could say that team is like the best team head and shoulders in the league over everybody else. Why the heck should he get consideration when yet, Steve Kerr doesn't really have to do a damn thing to basically win? All he needs is those 4 stars, and that's it. Only time he really has to do anything is when he's basically in a game with some of the top teams in the league, and there's not too many teams out there that really can compete with them because they don't have the talent needed to actually compete with 4 superstars. Stuff like that. So you got the coaches who feel we have too much talent, Igor, despite the fact we don't have Irving and Hayward. Yet, you look at the media out there, we don't have the talent needed. We don't have enough talent to get by Milwaukee because they got the Greek Freak. We don't have enough talent to get by Philadelphia because they got a so-called second-year rookie in Ben Simmons who can hit a jump shot, can hit free throws, and a big man in Joel Embiid who has spent most of his career on the sidelines injured than playing. And like I said, is more about dunking and layups than he is jump shots and 3-pointers. And we proved as long as you got a decent big man that doesn't let him get through him each and every possession, you can kind of, limit him. So I would like to question these guys. Which one is it? Which one is it? Is it that the Celtics got too much talent? Because if that's the case, that we got too much talent, then next year, heck, we better be considered the favorites to win the NBA championship if we got too much talent right now for Brad Stevens to be coach of the year, meaning that next year, if we're able to keep Marcus Smart and all these other guys that are key, and then we get Irving and Hayward back, we better be considered the favorite by Vegas if it's too much talent right now we got. If it's that we don't have enough talent, then heck, why the heck is it that all these other teams that do have more talent than us, supposedly according to all you people, their coaches are getting more treatment? Which one is it? I would like to see these insiders, see these analysts, see these coaches come together and, make a discussion out of that and, finally give us, a decision. As it is, you got the TV shows out here finally coming out and saying, is it time that we finally give these Celtics their due and admit we were wrong? We got to get these people to give us some sort of a decision, because it's kind of getting a little bit tiring that you got the coaches and the people from the NBA saying one thing, but then the media is saying the other. Do the Celtics suck, or are they good? Come on. Celtic fans need to know what they're getting themselves into. Don't you think it's actually right? For next year, if we suck, then we shouldn't be having high hopes for next season. If we're too good, that we should have been expected to get to this point, then hey, next year, regardless of where LeBron is going, Cleveland or Philly, wherever it is, we ought to be expected to go to the finals, ought to be expected to have a chance to beat Golden State. There shouldn't be anybody out there saying that basically we aren't good enough next year. I hope these people are all realizing that if you're going to say right now Boston has too much talent to where Brad Stevens shouldn't get consideration, next year you better continue with that same sentiment. If they keep all the key players, you better keep that same sentiment and be willing to admit that this Boston team has a chance to win it all. Don't backtrack next season when we get close to the start of the season and say, oh, this Boston team ain't got no shot at winning a championship, after you just said a couple months ago this team has too much talent in this case and they got a boatload and it's not fair. It's one or the other. I hate people, Igor, that are like that go the route of saying one thing and then a couple months later, a couple weeks later, they backtrack and they say something totally different. There's only a few people I know that they say one thing, they absolutely stay with it. That's why someone like Stephen A. Smith, Igor, I have so much respect for Stephen A. Smith, because he is one guy that is absolutely willing to say one thing and he sticks to it. If he's wrong, he will admit he was wrong in this situation and man up to it. The rest of the guys in this situation that come out talking about these things, whether it's Max Kellerman, whether it's Chris Broussard, whether it's, Jalen Rose, all these other guys you see that are supposed to be the NBA experts in this case, you see them say one thing right now, and then in a few weeks, if they turn out to basically look like a donkey's rear because the Celtics or another team prove they didn't know what the heck they were talking about, they come out and they try to act like the Men in Black, Igor, put the black sunglasses on and use the neuralizer on you to try and erase your memory and say, I never said that. I said they actually had a chance in this series. I didn't pick them as the favorite. I said they had a chance. Hello, saying they're gonna get beat in 4 games is not saying they actually had a chance. Saying they're gonna get beat in 4 games is pretty much saying they got no shot of winning a single game. So really, they ain't got no shot. Saying they have a chance is saying you got it going 6, maybe 7 games, something like that. You can say they're not the favorites, but come on, saying they're not the favorites is different than saying they're getting swept in this case. So I absolutely hate it, Igor, when people cannot man up and admit they were wrong for certain things.
Right.
And like I said, with the Celtics, it's been like that nearly the entire season. Everybody gets so high up on one specific team in the East, whether it's that they were so high up on LeBron at the start, and next thing you know, his team starts stinking up the joint. They get off his bandwagon. They jump on the bandwagon for Toronto to be the team to beat us. After that, they jump back on his bandwagon after they make the few trades, and the team starts looking a little bit better, after the trade deadline. Next thing you know, they start to suck again. And they jump off the bandwagon and jump on the Philly bandwagon. And now look where we're left. The one team that didn't have anybody getting any respect, jumping on their bandwagon throughout most of the season, was the Boston team in this case. And look it. You can say maybe Boston's not the favorite to win right now in this series because they got so many injuries to their best players. But literally, how stupid and how idiotic can you people have been all season long? And now you still don't want to give the Celtics their due? Most of these people that I've been able to hear today, most of them still don't want to admit they were wrong. They still want to say it was Philly, Igor. It's not that Boston simply outplayed them. Boston was simply the better team. Brad Stevens is simply one of the best coaches, one of the top 2 coaches, that we basically fell too much in love with the 76ers to actually see basically that, things were just going a little bit too easily for them. They had too easy of a schedule, too easy of a first round matchup. We didn't really think of what would happen when they faced a really good team. And unfortunately, it blinded us. Our love for them and our love for basically seeing those two young players basically blinded us when it came to what we really should have been looking at. Stephen A. Smith, Igor, said it today on First Take. The process, we basically, we found out today, we found out last night. The process we should have been talking about all season long was not the process in Philly. It was the process in Boston that we should have been talking about all season long. That was what we learned last night after the Celtics team eliminated the Philadelphia 76ers. There ain't no way in hell you're going to see any of those other insiders or experts coming out and saying that tonight, or saying that within the next few weeks. Stephen A. Smith is the only one that's going to be willing to actually say that. So fine. They don't want to give us our due, Igor. We'll live with it. We may not win this next round against LeBron and the Cavs due to the injuries, but I can tell you one thing. If we have got too much talent, that Brad Stevens can't even be given a one damn vote for Coach of the Year from the other 29 coaches in the league, then damn, I can only imagine how much talent these coaches are going to think we have next year in this case. I guess next year, Igor, we better brace ourselves for an 82-0 season.
Excellent stuff, Danny. That was all for today. Like you said, we saw on the court who is more talented team. In the next year, when we have Gordon Hayward and Kyrie Irving and Daniel Tice and additions from the summer, I think that Philadelphia, in order to beat us, should bring all-stars like James, Kawhi Leonard, or Paul George. Unless they bring that kind of player, they have absolutely 0% chance to beat us the next year and the years to come with this Celtics currently constructed team. That's all from us. Again, the Celtics eliminated the 76ers in 5 games in the Eastern Conference semifinals. The game 5 in Boston, 114-112. Tatum 25 points, Jaylen Brown 24 points, and Tatum's 7th game with 20 plus points, which is the most in the postseason since 2004-2005. Then Paul Pierce had the same record of games with 20 plus points, 7 games. We will be back Saturday night I, with my guests and Tim and Jared, to recap the, series and to make a preview of Cavaliers series. Cavaliers series is starting Sunday, 3:30 p.m. Eastern, ABC, and starting from Tuesday, the series will be Tuesday in Boston, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, ESPN. Before that, the draft lottery, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, Tuesday. We will inform you about everything, and we will do coverage of the games like we used to do in the first two rounds of the playoffs. That was chat number 34. The Celtics advanced in the Eastern Conference Finals for the second straight year. Congratulations to all the Boston Celtics sports fans, to Brad Stevens, Danny Ainge, Vic Grusbeck, Steve Paluca, to everybody in the Celtics organizations, and of course the Celtics players, so as the Celtics legends that are leading for the Celtics still. And of course, thanks Drew Bledsoe for appearing last night. We forgot to mention him. That's it. And Danny, your last comments?
Like you said, Igor, it was a great series. Our guys were dominant. This series it's going to be good seeing an old-fashioned rivalry between two regulars of the NBA in this case. Hopefully they can bring back that old Celtics 76ers rivalry that everybody was used to before you and me were even born. That's what everybody that's older than us, the adults and all that are talking about. But like you said, it's going to be impossible, in my opinion, for Philly to really hold up to anything during the time that Simmons and Sarge is choosing to be out there against us unless somebody else comes out to help, whether it's LeBron, Paul George, Leonard, something like that. Of course, again, it's going to really cost the 76ers to get one of those guys. It could be the loss of J.J. Redick in this case, and that key loss, knowing that he's arguably the third best player on that team. So you're giving up, arguably the best shooter to bring in one of those guys. And I don't think Redick will take a pay cut just to stay in Philadelphia, in this situation, knowing that there's no guarantee, even with LeBron or Paul George, that they would actually get out of the East, knowing that they would still have to contend with us with a full healthy roster. Ladies and gentlemen, next round, I say, Igor, it's icing on the cake. Whatever you get next round, ladies and gentlemen, whether the Celtics get swept, whether we go 5 games, 6 games, 7 games, or if we win it, the next round is, to me, an added bonus. You did what you needed to do, in my opinion, which was get through the two teams in the first 2 rounds to prove that technically you are up there with LeBron and the Cavs as the top 2 teams in the Eastern Conference. If you manage to just win 1 game, you already proved that you were better than Toronto in this case. So the idea that Dwayne Casey is a better coach than Brad Stevens now can go out the window. Again, the Coach of the Year award, ladies and gentlemen, that me and Igor have mentioned, that Brad Stevens didn't get no votes, that was from the coaches themselves. The Coach of the Year award that comes from the media, where the media people like Stephen A. Smith and all that each get 3 votes to choose the top 3 in their opinion, and it's all about who gets the most votes in those situations. That Coach of the Year award is still yet to be determined. They still haven't made those votes as far as I know. So when it comes to that, the Celtics, if they just manage to get 1 win, Igor, in this series against LeBron and the Cavs, you already prove you're better than the Toronto Raptors, which means next year, nobody can look at them as a better team than you. Nobody can look at them being better this year than you. Same thing with the coach. Brad Stevens will prove he was a better coach than Dwayne Casey in this situation. So that Coach of the Year award, nobody from the media should even consider giving it to Casey in this case, knowing what Brad Stevens will have done. And if you go further than that, then you may have just made LeBron James' decision for him. The decision of whether to leave Cleveland or to stay. The more you push LeBron in this series, ladies and gentlemen, the more likely it is he is going to end up leaving Cleveland because of the fact that Cleveland will not be able to get any help for LeBron to go to Cleveland due to the lack of salary cap space, the lack of trade assets. You will make it where LeBron will then realize, if I cannot sweep these Boston Celtics, if I can't beat them in 5, beat them in 6, if you go all the way to 7, heck, the worst case scenario for him is if you beat him, his legacy might take a hit, in my opinion. But the more you push him in this case, Igor, the more likely it is LeBron's going to realize there ain't no way I'm going to beat this Boston Celtic team with Kyrie and Gordon next year with this roster in Cleveland. And you will make it where now LeBron is going to seriously have to consider, does he leave Cleveland for Philly, or does he choose to go to the Western Conference? Because I think Philadelphia is the only team in the East that will have a shot, according to the numbers, to actually sign LeBron. So if Philadelphia doesn't get him, it's bye-bye to the Eastern Conference in all likelihood, and hello to a team in the Western Conference. So remember what you're looking at, Boston. You push LeBron any way in this series, you are playing for the opportunity to force LeBron out of Cleveland and possibly force him out of the Eastern Conference for good.
Okay, that's all from us. Search our stuff at blogtalkradio.com, Celtics Talk Radio. Find also our episodes on the YouTube. This was episode 34, recap of the game number 5, round 2, Eastern Conference semifinals. We will be returned in the playoffs. Until then, we are wishing you good night and listen to the Celtics Talk Radio. Good night, Celtics fans, and go Celtics.